So we're going to start this thing now. The title is The Future of Gaming. I guess you heard that. We've got a panel of 5 experts. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm not going to try and mangle their names or their reputation. I just want to tell you this is Mission Impossible. And the reason this is Mission Impossible is because we have 45 minutes to try and discuss the topic about the future of games. And I asked all these guys to give me one question that they would like me to ask them to just kind of get things kicked off until you guys decide you want to ask questions, right? I got 5.5 pages of questions. Single line, right? These guys don't have a clue as what's going on if they got these many questions. So I don't know where the experts are. Well, anyway, so without ado, starting now at the end.
All right, hey everybody. Chris Taylor. I started the business back in May '98, about 24 years ago. Made all sorts of sports games up in Canada, came down, did Total Annihilation with Ron Gilbert at Humongous/Cave Dog, and then I started my own company called Gaspard Games about 14 years ago. So I've been doing this a while, and lots of fun up until now.
Hi, I'm Dan Baker. I won't give you my entire career, but for the last 6 years, I'm a software architect at Firaxis Games, and I've built all of our graphics technology for the Civilization series.
Hi, I'm Garreth Thomas. I'm a principal programmer at Codemasters in the UK, and over the last few years I've been responsible for some of the architecture in the Dirt and Race Driver Grid series.
Hi, my name is Mark Caldwell. I was a co-founder of New World Computing back in the 80s. We did Might and Magic and Heroes and a bunch of other products, and I've since gone on to start other companies and work with Midway and a lot of other companies. Currently doing something in the social space, and I'm sure you can ask any specifics if you want.
Hi, and I'm Sikora. I've been in gaming about 20 years. I started off as a game developer in Toronto. After that, I actually moved to the hardware side of things, and I worked both at ATI, which is now AMD, and NVIDIA for about 7 to 8 years. And I've been at PopCap since about 2007, focusing on casual games and different demographics. So I've been working both on the enthusiast side and both on the casual side.
And I just realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jon Peddie from Jon Peddie Research, and I'm a user. I play games. So, and since I do play games and I worry about them, I'm curious, and it'll be the first kickoff question, what the panel thinks is the future and the possibility of us continuing to build AAA games and selling them at $60 each, or are we going to just give all that up and go to free-to-play? Start there and just work
Okay, so I drew a graph in my office, and I drew this big mountain, and I said, this is what our business looked like, say, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And then we got this other little mountain that grew beside it called casual games. And now there's this double mountain. Looks like the golden arches of McDonald's. We've got the big free-to-play stuff that's happening online, Facebook, and then we have the old business. And the question is really, which one of these businesses is going to be around in 5 and 10 years? And if you're running a company or you're working on building a company around a strategy, you got to kind of make a prediction and make some bets. So I'm going to bet that the mountain on the free-to-play side, the casual side, the social side, I'm going to bet that that mountain continues to grow and grow. And I'm going to say that the mountain that we're looking at now, which is about 35 million users, as sort of indicated by Steam, is going to either stay the same or decline. But through some great product, which we always tend to see in that space, it might very well stay the same and grow. But the exciting business is definitely in the space where we've got 100 million people playing to 200-some million people playing very, very, very casually. And I'm excited about seeing that number grow to 1 billion plus over the next 5 to 15 years. Really vague, but that's where I think the future is.
Which mountain is the 15 billion number? Is that the second mountain or the first mountain?
The first mountain, on the left. I kind of graphed it, dollars and complexity. So the lower dollar games, the lower complexity games was the social and free-to-play space. We've got our whales in there, but that is where the true potential and future of the PC business is.
Okay.
Well, I'm not a business guy, so I'll have to give you my opinion, but as a dev, we've done free-to-play stuff, Civilization, Facebook, and I have to say that we're seeing a surprising resilience in the traditional model. I mean, a lot of people have written it off, but from our standpoint, it's still doing well and possibly even growing. So, that first mountain may still be viable for years to come.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think casual games certainly have a certain market share and it's growing. But I think gamers are not going to get all their gaming fix from just playing sort of Angry Birds. I think people want to, still have a AAA games experience. I think the difficult part is as you go to, say, like the next gen, say in 5 years' time or so, and there's 10 times more compute power, and people expect 10 times more fidelity in your game. How do you then keep the cost still at sort of $60 rather than, an order of magnitude more? And I think we have to really work a lot smarter now rather than work harder. So perhaps some of these big engines like Unreal will become more and more popular. So there's a cheaper way to produce AAA quality content while keeping the cost down.
I kind of agree, but I think, why do they have to be separate, right? Why do you have to sell it for $69? What difference does it really make? I mean, ultimately, we have these mobile devices. We love to play on them, but when we get home, we don't sit in our office or at our computer playing on this mobile device. I really love, personally, the feel of a keyboard, the feel of a mouse. I really love to play a game that way. But I also, when I'm sitting in an airport, want to pass some time. So I also want to play a game that way. What's to say we can't have both, right? Now, it's just part of a bigger gaming experience. I can create a game today, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is create a game that will run effectively on a mobile device, but be extended and run better on a PC device, right? Do things specifically that we can to make it work better on a PC device. So I'm not saying we're going to sell it for $69 because I'm entering the social space, so I want to say we're giving it away, right? But there are advantages to playing on both devices. Why make it one or the other? Let's make everything work on everything and take advantage of what's available to give the best possible experience. That's why I think we're
APIs would be one reason.
Well, there's things you can do specifically, like, if I can program directly as a unified code base and do something specifically for the iPhone, something specifically for Android, something specifically for a GPU-based server, right? I mean, there's a lot of things I can do specifically without having to, focus on one thing. Now, it's a little bit of extra effort, but I think people are going to expect that going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to Mark's point, most larger developers these days, if they're not leveraging something like the Unreal Engine, internally they're using some kind of framework which allows them to develop a reference platform and then export that to multiple platforms. So I think, there's definitely still going to be a place for AAA games. I think that's going to shift slightly where it's not going to be one platform anymore. So, taking a look at, say, Call of Duty, for example, one of the most recent biggest hits, on Xbox, on PlayStation, and on the PC simultaneously. As that continues to evolve, we're going to start to see more companion experiences on smaller platforms, so bringing in casual-esque experiences with some of these AAA experiences. But I think, as things progress, I don't see AAA games going away anytime in the near future.
You raised an interesting question when you talked about the multiple platforms. It's my impression, if you will, that the game developers will develop for consoles first and then port to the PC. And so I'm curious, with the consoles running out of steam, no pun intended there, running out of life, will the game developers still make a console their first choice for development, or will they choose the PC, which I think has longer legs and more robust engines and more power available? Yeah, let's just keep going that way.
Well, first choice, console's expensive to develop on. The development hardware, just the red tape and process, getting access to information, resources. So the PC is the first choice in game development. There's no question about it. And there's not only are they super inexpensive now to get a very powerful. For $1,200, we're building out our dev rigs at the office, and there's not a lot of compromise in a $1,200 box. So it's fabulous, right? So that's, to me, there's no question. I mean, you asking is there life in the console? That's a topic for another panel, I think, because we're talking about PC gaming here. But people ask me. Let me just hijack the point and say, people asked me 3 years ago and said, what's the future of PC gaming? Is it dead? Is it dying? I said, not only is PC gaming not dying, it's the future of gaming. Now, it's been complicated a little bit with all the mobile devices, but if you're going to put something on a mobile device right now, are you going to put a shooter or something complex that appeals to those 35 million gamers that we see on Steam right now? Are you going to put something on that mobile device that appeals to 800 million people or 1 billion people? That looks like what's happening in the PC space, which means the same game, footprint, art assets, design, all of that stuff is much more compatible mobile to PC than it is with the traditional console. So I know I didn't answer your question exactly, but
No, you did. You said
Kinda
PCs were first in your mind.
yeah, okay.
The platform that is first is completely dependent on who's paying the bills. Yeah, I mean, I'm just cynical, but the consoles. I mean, one of the things that's happening, and interject, I kind of my own opinion here, that one of the things that's really attractive about the consoles, you have a fixed hardware platform, and from a graphics standpoint, a resource standpoint, that when you're start talking about major capital expenditure on a game, the fact that you have a fixed hardware platform does. If you're spending a lot of money, get you a lot more effective. And last title, Civilization 5, obviously was a PC-only title, and there's a huge variety of hardware that you have to run on. And one of the major problems that we've had in the PC is that until recently, a lot of PCs just didn't have sufficient hardware graphics capability to really run your game. And so you're in this problem of how do you describe to someone that they have the exact right magic mix of stuff to run your game. One of the really exciting things that's happening is that all of a sudden every CPU that's shipping, well, almost everyone, within a couple years this will be the case, actually has pretty decent integrated graphics in it. Very powerful stuff that's on par with the current generation consoles. And from a PC developer, what this means for me is that I can now basically say, if you have a PC, I should be able to run. And that I think that may cause a resurgence of PC gaming, because all of a sudden we can make a PC game that is much more uniform. And people talk about the console market. Well, there's 50 million Xbox 360s, another 50 million PS3s, somewhere in that range. PCs, there's 500 million sold every year. So if you actually can get your game so it can run on any PC, which can happen with these new integrated Fusion chips, then your market is, instead of 50 million or 100 million, is billions. So when we embrace this, I think that the PC market could be potentially dwarf the other markets.
I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about the integrated graphics, because I mean, Codemasters is predominantly a console developer, so we always pitch our assets to fit for consoles, and then we'll apply those same assets to the PC version. But actually, it's getting to the point now where integrated graphics is just as powerful as the consoles. So sort of your medium settings on PC is equivalent to the console settings, and will certainly run on sort of Fusion laptops and so on. I think the challenge now is trying to make the PC version look significantly better than what you have on consoles, because you've got frame rate, multi-sampling, and resolution to help you. But you kind of also want to then push the graphical boundary a bit further, really, and I think that's where progression will be made over the next few years.
So, wait. Follow up. Progression will be made where? In pushing the graphic boundary?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of new techniques coming out, which are never feasible on consoles. So things like, if you've seen the Leo demo, you've got the forward plus rendering. Mm-hmm. So this is the ability to have arbitrary numbers of lights rendered in your scene. So that's something that now you'd expect to see on future PC games, which you wouldn't get on consoles. Mm-hmm. Things like the global illumination. There's a lot of new techniques to come out to approximate real-time global illumination. So you'd never get these things on console. You'd have to accept that it's pre-baked. But with given more GPU horsepower, you can start to accept that this can be now real-time.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that it really depends on the platform you're being paid to produce for. So if you're a developer and Electronic Arts is paying the bill and they want a PS3 version, well, then that's the version you're going to make. But also you have to take a look at, does it make sense to make this game for the platform, right? Do you want Angry Birds on the PS3, right? Does anybody really care, right? So, if you're going to design something, you have to figure out what platform you're making it for, and then go try to get the funding for that, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I totally agree. 100% of development is done on PCs. I mean, now that there's social gaming, a lot of it's done on Macs in general. I'm just going to include that as a PC, a personal computer. We always have designed our engines to run on the PC first, and then had to limit them or expand them based on where we're going with them, right? But again, in my opinion, it's always come down to the design. What is the limitation of the platform you're developing for? Design around the limitations, and you'll create the best product.